Hey, everybody, welcome back to Chit Chat. I'm your host, Guy Magno. Thank you so much for listening to this podcast. We are thankful that this community continues to grow and that you're listening. We just really, really appreciate it. We want to be a voice for Central Minnesota. There are so many people that are doing really cool things, really neat things in our community, and we just want to be one of the little microphones for the people that are doing neat stuff in our community. The nature of being a business owner here in Central Minnesota means that I've talked to and I have interviewed lots of business owners. It's kind of who is in my sphere and in my network, and so that's who I've asked. This past Saturday, while at a cribbage tournament, I got to meet someone named Alex Cutchey. And Alex is running for city council at large here in St. Cloud. And it just was a fun conversation. I was asking him questions, learning about city council and what he was excited about. And I just asked, I said, hey, would you have any interest in coming on our podcast? So I've met Alex twice, and this was one of them. So this is a new kind of thing for me, and it was really, really fun. I love learning about our city. I love people that are passionate about our community and who also want to see our community better. And so Alex is both of those things. So I'm excited for you to hear the interview now. Thanks so much. All right. Well, Alex, thanks for coming and joining us on the Chit Chat podcast. Really, really appreciate it.
Happy to be here, Guy.
Okay, Alex, this past Saturday at the cribbage tournament, the Kinder Coffee Lab cribbage tournament, I met you. You and your lovely fiance, Andrea, showed up to play some cribbage, and I met you, I think, for the first time. Maybe I ran into you at a chamber event or something, but I was asking you some questions about running for city council, and I just thought it would be a really fun conversation to have with you. The nature of the podcast and just my connections in St. Cloud, I've talked to a lot of like business owners because I'm a business owner in St. Cloud, and we have similar conversations. We have a vested interest in St. Cloud continuing to get better and being really thankful for our community, and also seeing like, man, we hope it continues to grow. And I thought having you on, because I met you, and maybe we'll do some others, but talk about it from the perspective of running for office for city council. So anyway, that's what I hope our conversation is today. I just want to welcome you and thank you for coming. I appreciate you being willing to come and do this. Maybe before we start, would you just maybe introduce yourself?
Sure.
Who are you and what are you up to?
Absolutely. Well, Guy, first off, I want to say thank you for inviting me on this. This is an important conversation today. And what I truly appreciate is that you had enough trust in me to invite me on this, especially after seeing my dismal cribbage performance. So that's still a little bit of a sore spot for me, but get a chance to hopefully be there next month for a rematch on some of that. But a little bit about me is I am running for St. Cloud City Council. It's an important election. It's a lot of changes are happening within the city. 16 other candidates are running for St. Cloud City Council. That is a size of a candidate pool that the city has not seen for 50 years. Wow. And that says a lot about the city itself. It says that people are interested, people want to be participatory in the process, and I am very fortunate to be able to put my name in that hat with a great group of candidates to run for any of those open seats. So that's a little bit about St. Cloud and City Council and why I'm kind of interested in that.
Wonderful. I think that, obviously, as we're heading into this upcoming, full election cycle, I think just nationally, it is a big, important election. But I think even more so in our state and local elections, this will be really, really important as well. Would you maybe, why do you think city council is important?
Yeah, it's a great question. I think politics, when you break it down to its most pure form, is at a very local level. It's a very small issue level, and it's issues that really impact people within the community. City council itself, I can't imagine a level of policy that has more impact in the community than city council. Yeah. It really deals with kind of three main things that all cities have as their core purpose, and that is really what taxation is and what taxes look like and incentives look like, what police power looks like on behalf of the city, and finally also being an avenue for people to actually come up and bring issues to the council and be council actually being close to constituents in a way that Washington is not, in a way that the State House at the capital of Minnesota is not. It's really the avenue to bring community up in front of a local elected official and articulate what's really important to the city so it can focus on those two things, and then also infrastructure, which is the other core purpose of a city.
So often when we think about politics, we think about the national political scene and how polarized and partisan it is. City council is not a partisan position. Why do you think that's important?
Well, I'm going to go back to kind of the three purposes of a city, its corporate purposes: taxation, infrastructure, and policing power. City council is unique. City positions are unique, and I think counties are this way as well, in that they really kind of focus in on that core purpose, and they don't really get into all of the big social questions about dictating how people should live their lives. And because of that, city council, city politicians, they need to actually govern on behalf of the city and do what's best for the city. And those other issues aren't. I'm not saying that they're not important. They are. They're not really suited well for individuals at a city level, because cities just don't have the resources for that. That's not really what they do. They focus on roads, policing power, and taxation, and whether that be positive taxation or negative taxation.
Yep. So with those three kind of main purviews of a city, infrastructure, policing, and taxation, would you maybe give us what's a thing or two in relationship to each of those buckets that you think that could be improved with St. Cloud? And what would you like to see done if you were to get elected in your first term?
What I'll say is, with the policing power, St. Cloud has an issue with crime, and it always has had a little bit of that. But
doesn't every larger city, every larger
city does, every larger city. But it's got a perception of crime being a significant issue, and that perception is partly by the fact that you've got areas that have lower socioeconomic status. You've got a more service-driven industry with late-night bars. You've got a large population of renters. You've got a large population of transient kind of college students. Those things all make it a little bit more difficult for a city to have a strong public safety record. And St. Cloud's is almost twice as, there's almost twice as much crime in St. Cloud than there is in the greater Minnesota area as a whole. What's interesting is if you look at St. Cloud itself compared to some of the cities that surround it, St. Cloud has a much higher crime rate. And there's things that we can do to improve it. I mean, there's always things that we can do to improve things. But if we start working on the perception issue, that really ends up being a game changer for us, because we start retaining more people, we start attracting more people. It's a perceived to be a better place to raise families, a better place to also come and do business, and that's something that, as a city, we want to promote St. Cloud and all the wonderful things that it has. And so that's why that's one of the core areas, and that's something that a city's really equipped to do well. It can report accurately. It can, do citizen programs. It can do. It can hire more staff. It could look at its ordinances associated with what is considered a crime. It could work on partnerships, a number of areas that's a easy lift for a city to improve the situation. So that's one thing. Another is revitalizing communities. That is kind of a broad term, but I think of that as you've got business communities, you've got neighborhood communities. They're all things that the city really can focus in on and incentivize or disincentivize based on its actions. Taxation is one way it can incentivize or disincentivize behaviors. It can also focus in on what regulations and restrictions are in place that are actually preventing from business and investment from happening, and see if there's any way that it can simplify that to make it easier. So whether that be downtown, looking at when the parking hours are as a very small change, whether that would be, having like a grant person in the city whose specific role is to look at grants that are available and coordinate
like
with
state
outside
and federal
businesses.
grants.
Yeah. These are what's available for you if you want to come here, and we've already taken a look at everything. So those are all ways that community can actually be focused in on, as well as things doing like walks in the park or different Granite City Days events like that, which build a community that is not necessarily based on geographic location or identity, but community based in the city itself. So those are all things that are important to me. I think they're important to people within the city, and it's really a core purpose of what the city has.
Yeah.
And lastly, the area of infrastructure. St. Cloud has horrible roads, a ton of potholes. We could work on fixing those. We could come up with some better long-term solutions as far as policy about how we pay for some of those things, whether that be if direct assessments is still the best way to do it, or we look at a more holistic funding source, or look at funding sources from the state or other entities as well, because those exist as well.
When you were talking about policing, I thought back to just in the last maybe 3 months ago. I have a friend that is a police officer here in St. Cloud, and I got to do a ride along with him. He works in the evening, and I think I met him at the police station at like 9 p.m. And we did muster, which muster is, if you don't know what muster is, it's where all police officers get together and the sergeant kind of says like, this is what's happening tonight, kind of a roll call of sorts for the evening. It's like Brooklyn Nine-Nine, if anybody's seen that, where they all get together in the little room and they talk about the day. This is what muster is. And I learned while sitting there. But I'm in bed. I mean, I'm in bed. I have kids. I try to work hard during the day. I'm tired when I get home. And so I'm usually in bed by maybe, 10 o'clock would be probably even late maybe for me. And I haven't seen St. Cloud at night in a long time. And I was taken back just at 2 a.m. at bar close, how much, maybe crime or sadness. I mean, it was hard. And just like to watch my friend and all of his colleagues just trying to do their best with that it was a fascinating thing to watch. Again, it's just something I don't club. I'm not a bar scene guy, and so it was interesting to see that at bar close. And so I'm thankful for our police officers who are, I think, doing a really good job trying to keep us safe. But yeah, I think I saw crime that I just haven't seen in central Minnesota at 2 a.m. Go home, go to bed. Like,
yeah.
What are you doing up?
And I've got a somewhat of a jaded perspective on some of that. I did a little bit of criminal defense before I moved into energy and infrastructure and policy and all that, and that's where a lot of misery and sadness occurs, is late hours, right?
Yeah.
And it's something that we hope that we don't get much exposure to. We see it in news articles.
Mm-hmm.
We every once in a while we know people that are impacted by it, but it impacts all of us indirectly as well when there's violence and there's crime, and it does bring down the community.
Yeah. Maybe would you just tell us a little bit more about your day job?
Yeah.
What do you do for work, and how does your role in the business community, how does that kind of affect the way you think about your hopeful job as a city councilman?
Sure. I'll step back a moment and just kind of talk a little bit about my history before I move into what
Sure.
I'm doing now.
Yeah.
But I'm an attorney, and I've spent a number of years where I started in actually public service, and then I moved more into the private side. So initially I did a little bit of criminal defense, but then I clerked with a federal judge and became a assistant general counsel for a statewide public utility commission. So that was setting rates, working with natural monopolies and ensure that customers were protected and they weren't raising the prices exorbitantly, and there was still good service and everyone had electricity. And that moved into representing cities. And so I represented about 750 municipal utilities for a statewide trade association. I did that for a while until I moved over to more the private side, in which I was working with utility companies. And now today I actually work with a company that builds data centers and works on policy for data centers and actually digital currencies and blockchain, which is fascinating. It's an energy-intensive industry, but it is also one that has a lot of power to do a lot of good for a lot of people, and also have some innovative disruptions for existing systems that are out there. It's just a new technology, and we don't really know what to do with it yet. So that's all been really exciting for me. But the area in the background that I came into everything with was being a municipal attorney and working on infrastructure projects and dealing with open records law and FOIA requests and what public meetings should look like and what types of things should I advise my city councils and city clerks on so they can go into making good policy when they're doing policy decisions and representing them in different hearings. And that has provided a wonderful backdrop to understand city issues and understand really the amount of work that it takes and dedication that our public servants have in any capacity, whether they're a city employee, whether they are an elected official. It's a labor of love that no one would do unless they really enjoyed a little bit of scrutiny and a lot of late nights and a lot of dealing with people and talking about what's important to them on a political issue in one-on-one conversations, which is what politics really comes down to. So all of that has prepared me, I think, very well for the role of city council for St. Cloud, and has also helped acclimate me to what that looks like as a job, a service on day one, and have a really realistic idea of what it is when I'm going into.
Interesting. When did you announce your candidacy? Is that the right word?
Yeah, I announced it's kind of a fun story, and I had been thinking about it for a while, and life gets a little bit busy, and then the filing deadlines were coming up for St. Cloud City Council, which I believe were at the end of May, if I remember correctly. So I went into a St. Cloud Chamber of Commerce Friday meeting, stood up and said, I am going to be your next candidate for St. Cloud City Council. I'm going to represent you and represent the business community for St. Cloud, and I will ensure that we've got a good competitive environment for you, incentivize existing businesses and new businesses, and make sure that you have what you need to be successful here. And that was when I really announced, and I told anyone, and I came back and I told my fiance about it, and she said, "You did what?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I did, and now I got to go and get my 25 signatures to make sure I've got my nominating papers in," which ended up being 50 because I wanted a safe margin of error. And, thankfully, that was a safe enough margin of error for me.
Wonderful. What have you learned about yourself in this process of? I mean, you've stuck your name out there, and subsequently your person and your ideas in a kind of way that you probably never have before. What have you learned about yourself in that process? I
always knew that I enjoyed talking to people. I always knew that I enjoyed being out and about. What I did not know is just how much I enjoy it. I am like you in that 9 o'clock is kind of a hard stop for bedtime for me on most days, so I've had to push myself past that a little bit. A lot of the challenge has been actually just figuring out how to register for things and get the bank account set up when you're not filing like corporate formation documents with the Secretary of State and going through all this kind of new set of Minnesota election law and making sure that you're compliant on that. But I've learned that, like anything, it's a persistence game. You've got days in which you just don't really want to go and do the right thing to do, and you force yourself to do it. You force yourself to be at the place, and then you get there and you're like, I'm so happy that I came and I'm with you here doing this. This is a wonderful, energizing use of my time, and it's really fulfilling. So that's all been fascinating to see the level of persistence on some of these things where you've got ebbs and flows. And you realize that you put your name out there and you're subjecting yourself to scrutiny and criticisms, and sometimes you question whether or not that was the right idea. But at the end of the day, after just a momentary flicker of doubt, you realize, of course it was. Of course it was the right thing to do, and of course I'm doing what I care about and what I love. So,
what's been like maybe the hardest thing about running?
The hardest thing is the timing of it. It's in this specific election, you have 16 candidates, and you've got a primary which is really only about little over 2 months from the filing date. So I wasn't doing a lot of groundwork laying before. I wasn't going out and really announcing myself as a candidate for St. Cloud City Council until about a week before I filed, right?
Mm-hmm.
And the amount of things that you have to do in those 2 months, it ends up being a lot. You got to go through and figure out what you can and can't do, dates when you can start putting up signs, what your signs can look like, where you're going to get your bank account because 5 banks will reject you. You've got to do your nominating papers, make sure that you go far over 25 because they have to be registered voters, and so people, can get 40 and still get denied. And make sure you're recording everything, know when to file your financial disclosures, figure out the time to go out and talk to people and door knock and go to events and get your lists to who wants a campaign sign, get your website set up, get your voter information submitted to all the people who are asking for surveys of the candidates, go and do your interviews, go and be involved in the community in a lot of ways which you haven't necessarily done before.
Sure.
And that becomes almost like a full-time job.
Yeah.
And there's a reason why most of the people that are on city council are either retired or at the age of retirement, because it takes a lot, right?
Yeah. So there are 16 running. Will there be any sort of like public debate or forum or anything like that where people from St. Cloud can go and meet you all and hear you speak or debate with each other about the city?
There'll be a couple of different ways that you can hear from the different candidates. One is Mayor Kleiss has been bringing people in for one-on-one interviews. So you get to hear a little bit about what their ideas are and their experiences and values and perceptions and all that stuff at that point and why they would be good for council. That's not really back and forth debate, but there is another opportunity that I believe it's on the 20th, and I have to verify the date, but that's over at Oblivion, in which people will be all sitting up there, all the city council candidates.
And is everybody invited to that?
Everyone's invited to it. And
do you think all 16 will come?
I don't think so, but I hope they do.
Yeah.
Because it's important for people, and people should have someone that is going to be a good representation of their interests and be responsive and accountable to them on the city council. And I think to be educated and active in the community, that's something that you probably want to do your diligence on.
For sure. Okay, so what is the date of that thing at Oblivion?
July 20th at 3 p.m. at Oblivion.
Okay. And hopefully a lot or all of the city councilors, the city council hopefuls will be there.
Candidates,
Candidates, that's great. Would you unpack for me and for our listeners maybe a little bit of like the structure or the bones of the city council position? So you said there are 16 people running for how many seats and how long is a term? And just maybe unpack a little bit of that for me.
Sure. So a term is 4 years, and city council is mixed between. It has seven councilors, 4 wards, and 3 at large. So right now, all 3 at-large positions are up for election. Those represent the entirety of the city. With 16 candidates, the primary on August 13th will weed that down with the 3 votes that you get to vote for 3, to the top 6 candidates.
And is it rank choice voting for those 3, or how does...
That I'm not sure on, I apologize.
Yeah.
I think it's you just select 3,
okay,
and there's no ranking.
Okay.
That is correct. You only select 3. There's no ranking.
Because you're not pulling 1 out of there.
Yeah, it's only, and then the top 6 with the most votes.
Got it.
But they're not ranked in any way, and it's not like you get more votes for your first and less for your third.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, you get to vote for 3 people.
Yeah.
It's not just a ward that you're voting for in which you would get 1 vote. You get to have a say in all 3.
So there are 7 total city councilors, right?
Yes.
And so is your role different as an at-large city councilor? Is it different in some capacity than the ones that are over each ward?
Yes and no. You're still representing the city in any capacity. So you are under the banner and the auspices of the city, and you are a public representative of the city. You get to deal with the fact that your life becomes public. You've got your commitments to be at your council meetings. You've got to do your diligence, duty of care, loyalty, all of that. Now, your constituents are theoretically different. Your wards have 1/4 of the city each, whereas the at-large has the entirety of the city. So the at-large councilor should probably be at more events. They should probably be more in touch with the larger city. They should be more in touch with the communities in general than the by ward positions. But so ultimately, there's not like a rank and file or anything like that. They all are independent representatives of the city.
So if you're running for your ward, only your ward votes on you. Got it.
Correct.
And what about like when you guys are voting on things, does your vote carry any sort of different kind of weight than someone who's a counselor of just a ward?
No. Same. They're equal in all rights.
Yep.
They have the same voting power and the same rights and responsibilities as any other member of the council.
Yeah. I think it's unique that we have these 3 at-large positions that are happening, the vote is happening, and we'll have a new mayor.
We'll have a new mayor
come this fall. Do you think, what will that be like to maybe join, if you are elected, to join a first-termed mayor's, to join with a mayor in his or her first term, rather than, let's say, Mayor Kleiss was going to run again and win, which would have been his 20-whatever year. How will that be different, working alongside someone who's brand new?
I think it'll be fascinating. You've got 6 candidates currently for mayor, and about half of them have experience as city councilors and half of them don't, right? So you could get someone up there that hasn't been involved in city government before. And what's unique about it just is that the mayor system itself is a strong mayor system. So
here in St. Cloud.
In St. Cloud.
Yeah.
It's a pretty rare type of way to actually govern a city, but the mayor acts as like the CEO of the city itself as far as the operations front, rather than just being like the president of a council, which would be the opposite, the weak mayor system. So the mayor itself really almost partners in a lot of ways with the council, and the council acts as a balance or a check on the mayor's operational side, in the same way that an executive branch exists within state government and a legislative branch exists in state government. They act together. So I think it'd be fascinating if you've got, depending on the mix of people that you have, but it will certainly change the dynamics of the city. We will likely have, I think most of the candidates for mayor are looking at it as like a part-time role. That would be a shift in the way that from what Dave Kleiss has done, where he really turned that into a very publicly available full-time position in which he has been acting as the face of the city for 20 years.
So if one of these candidates is elected as mayor who is going to do it differently than what Mayor Kleiss did, is there something that will actually legally change in relationship to strong mayor, weak mayor, or is that just done in kind of their approach, or is there something that's actual?
That's actually in city charter, so that's the way the city was actually formed and everything. That's not an approach thing or anything, or it doesn't have anything to do with personalities. That is just the powers and rights that are prescribed to the mayor versus the city council itself. So none of that is expected to change or could change without, I believe it would need a referendum, I assume, in order to change that. So nothing should change there, but I assume the dynamics of the city will definitely change.
Yeah.
Whoever ends up as mayor, culture tends to flow from the top.
Yeah.
And so if you've got a new person as the CEO, the operational head of the city, that will change the culture of everything within the city. And that's why that race is also important. People should be paying attention to who the candidates for mayor are and get to know them, get to speak with them, learn about them, hear their issues, hear their experiences. Yeah.
I'm hoping to have one or two of them on. I mean, I guess any of them that are willing. I'd love to ask them questions and meet them and give our audience kind of an opportunity to hear a little bit from them as well. If you were gonna tell someone why they should vote for you, over the other 16 or over the other 15, what would you tell them?
Well, you get 3 votes, right? So as long as I'm one of your votes in the primary, I'm fine. But to answer that question, both for the primary and the general, I really come into this with a lot of experience and a lot of awareness of what the job entails. And that comes from the experiences I've had working with diverse stakeholders on policy, on writing laws, on doing rulemakings and advising cities. Having someone that knows what that looks like shortens the curve for them to get up to speed. So I can come in on day one and be very familiar with what the role entails, what the obligations are, what the responsibilities and the commitments to the constituents really entail, and start doing the job that I was elected for.
Yeah.
I also bring the fact that I care a lot about the community. I love this place. But I also know what is policy that would have unintended consequences that doesn't always rear its head. And so the experience of what passing laws actually look like and approving recommendations from the city and asking the city to investigate certain things so they can make recommendations back, being accessible to people. I mean, those are all strong benefits that I bring into this role.
Sweet. And maybe, I don't know if I heard it before. I don't know if you said it. How long have you been in the St. Cloud area?
I've been in St. Cloud area for about 1.5 years.
All right.
And I was prior to that in Iowa for about 8 years or so.
Yep.
And prior to that, born and raised in the Twin Cities and spent a lot of time actually coming up to St. Cloud. So St. Cloud has always had a very special place in my heart. And the question of when we were moving back, when that showed up, St. Cloud is where we wanted to be and where my fiance and I set up roots and have our family and really have it be a place that's important to us and we get to cherish.
Sweet. In your 1.5 years of being here, what are a couple things that you have just come to love about the St. Cloud area? What do you think some of our kind of brightest spots are here in St. Cloud?
Have you seen the gardens?
Yeah.
Munsinger, Clemens, they are gorgeous. They are some of the best that I've ever seen anywhere in the Midwest, and absolutely love them. So that's great. I do appreciate the theater scene that there is here. It's absolutely wonderful.
Were you a theater kid?
I was a theater kid.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Fun.
I could recount and sing you a rendition from Little Shop of Horrors at some point, but I will spare you the torment.
Great.
And the listeners the torment of that as well. But wonderful theater scene here also. There's also a number of hidden gems in this community that are absolutely wonderful. One of my favorites is Shaka Shack that's down the road, where you can get yourself a little Hawaiian snow cone and listen to some reggae ska music outside and on a parking lot on a hot summer's day and just enjoy good tunes, good people, and a little bit of bags where you can toss them back and forth. So wonderful things about the community.
Wonderful. Well, sweet, Alex. I really appreciate you coming on. It's fun to hear a little bit more about you and what you're hoping to do as a city councilor. Best of luck to you. Kind of as we close here, one of the things that we do is we give people an opportunity for an unpaid advertisement. And so this is something or someone or some idea that you want to plug. Who do you think or what do you think should get a little plug today?
That's a great question. I'm gonna do the Summertime by George crew. The Rotary Club organizes that and hosts that and holds that every single summer, free of charge for the community on a weekly basis. And that is really, really impressive that they organize that, they dedicate their time for that, they bring everyone together and they offer community within our city. And it's something that they don't get enough credit for because it's absolutely wonderful. And those are the types of things that we need in order to make this a wonderful, wonderful place where people stay.
Yeah, it's an incredible thing. I think that most communities would look at one of those Wednesdays and they would think to themselves, how do we get that event, that one singular event in our community with that many people showing up, with that much infrastructure and the live music and all the vendors and just all that stuff. They would look and say like, man, how do we get one of those? And then the fact that it happens every Wednesday night in our community, I think is really, really special.
Absolutely.
I think that's great. My little unpaid ad for the day is just civic responsibility in general. Just go out, get out and vote. This fall, well, I guess there's we have the primary. No, is it called primary? What's
Primary.
the first thing? In August, and then this November, the actual election itself. So you should get out and vote. And then once you vote, then you're allowed to complain about stuff. But until then, maybe don't complain. That's my little unpaid ad for the day.
Thanks,
Alex,
Guy.
thanks for coming on. We really, really appreciate it a lot.
Thanks for having me.